Okay, so today this is the fifth lesson overall, and it's the fourth lesson for part two because we're really concentrating a lot on part two. So this is IELTS strategies for part two. You can call me Jason or Gwaine. So hello, this is Jason, or you can call me Gwaine. Let's do a little review. How many interrogatives are there? What are your interrogatives? How many senses are there? And what are your three primary emotions? Okay, this is all review. Remember, there are 7 interrogatives, but you only need to worry about 6 of them. We're not using which for IELTS. So 7 in general, but as far as we're concerned for IELTS, there's 6, right? Who, what, where, why, when, how. Be able to say them quickly. Who, what, where, why, when, how. A second, okay? You have 5 senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and tactile. Be able to say them quickly. Sight, hearing, taste, smell, tactile. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Because you only have a minute to prepare. Okay, your primary emotions are anger, sadness, and happiness. Remember, try to think of different emotions to talk about. And if you use the 3 primary emotions, remember to try to use synonyms for them, different words, different ways to say them. And also, really quickly, you could tell a little story to be more fluent and to use up more time. Okay, so today we're going to discuss some strategies for answering IELTS Part 2. Yes, we've discussed some big ones. Now we've got 9 smaller little strategies to discuss. And what do you think the first strategy is? Okay, so the first strategy is take good notes. We'll talk about that a little more. We'll talk about all of them a little more in detail. Okay, number 2, repeat the question in a rhetorical way. Number 3, give examples. Number 4, contrast yourself with others. Number 5, don't generalize. Number 6, both sides of an answer are fine sometimes. Number 7, compare before and now. A better way to say that would be compare past and present. Number 8, discuss most cases versus an exception. Number 9, discuss different degrees of things. So we're going to be talking about these in a lot more detail, of course. And you won't be able to use all of these on one question. They're just good to know, right? Like some of these, you won't. There's a question you just won't be able to answer it with these. So number 1 is take good notes. You'll be given 1 minute to take notes before you begin to answer the question that you're given. Use this time wisely. What are some good ways to take notes? And another question, when you're taking notes, should you be very thorough and write full sentences? Okay, so on taking good notes. The last question. No, do not write full sentences. Only write words or phrases to help you remember what you wanted to say. You only have 1 minute, right? You don't have a lot of time. Try to write in English, right? Your fluency is being tested, not your translation skills. There's no reason to write in Chinese for this. Write in English. I understand sometimes if you're fast, maybe a Chinese character is quicker to write than a phrase in English. But it's just better when you're looking at your notes to be able to speak them out in English. Try to think and respond in English when answering. Try not to be thinking in Chinese at this point. Try to think and respond in English. Don't write down your interrogatives, right? They should already be in your head. They should already be in your mind. Don't write them down. Think them and then write your answers down. Here's an example. Here's what you might be thinking, right? So if they're asking about your hometown, you might think, who? My mom. What about my mom? My mom is very short. She has dark hair. She must be about 50 years old now. I remember that pink jacket she used to wear when I was younger. She is older now, but still very pretty. She was an accountant. I know that she never liked her job, but she did it for 30 years without complaining at all. You can't write all of that down, right? So for that, all that stuff going through your mind, you might write down, Mom, 50, short, dark hair, pink, accountant. This will help you remember all the other things, right? Pink, you'll remember the pink jacket. Accountant, you'll remember that's her job, right? Her age, right? She's your mom. She's 50, right? She's short. She's got dark hair, a pink jacket, an accountant. You can't write down everything you're going to say. You only have 1 minute. So only write down a few words and allow yourself to remember everything else based on the few words that you write down. Please remember, you only have 1 minute to write down your notes. That minute will go by very quickly. You will waste your time writing down every little thing and you won't get much done. Okay, that was number 1. I got some questions for you. What does rhetorical mean? And what is the next strategy? Okay, so with the first question, it's going to take a little while to answer. Rhetorical means dealing with rhetoric, right? So you might ask yourself, what is rhetoric? Hopefully you paused and looked this stuff up. Rhetoric is an argument or point that you want to make. A rhetorical question is a question put forth as part of your rhetoric, right? In general, rhetorical questions are those that are asked and do not require an answer. So rhetoric is argument, a point, things you want to say to prove a point or convince someone of something. So often in our rhetoric, we'll use a rhetorical question, right? A rhetorical question is one that we ask, but it's part of our point. It's part of what we are trying to say. It is not usually something we want answered, right? So your next strategy is to repeat the question in a rhetorical way. So as I just stated, number 2, repeat the question in a rhetorical way. If you're asked, describe your hometown, then repeat it when you begin to answer the next question, right? Or I'm sorry, when you begin to answer the question, right? So the question is, you know this is the question, describe your hometown. You take a minute, you're writing down your answers. Then when you're done, you begin. You might repeat, okay, describe my hometown. And of course, if the question is longer, then it kills more time. This one is basically killing time. This will kill a few seconds, but not just will it kill a few seconds, it'll also give you a few more seconds to think about other things you want to say in your answer. All right. What is the next strategy? Number 3. Give different examples. This basically takes up more time. This can also show that you've thought about your answer and considered other answers. So an example, what is your favorite anything, right? I like a lot of different things. I like a lot of different of whatever this is, including this, this, and this. But my favorite is this, right? For example, to put some words in there, what is your favorite food? You can say, I like a lot of different types of food, including hamburgers, pizza, and chow mein. But my favorite is a turkey sandwich. However you want to answer it, right? this shows that you thought about it. It shows also it takes up more time, right? If you're worried about time, which is a big thing a lot of students are worried about. Okay, what does compare and contrast mean? What does generalize mean? And remember, compare and contrast have opposite meanings, or they do when they're used together. Compare can mean to find both similarities and differences. But if it's used with contrast, compare means similarities, and then contrast means differences. Generalize means to lump many people or a group of people together and consider them the same, right? So, number 4, contrast yourself with others. What is your favorite blank, or describe your favorite blank? Then you could say, well, many of my friends like blank, but I like blank. Or blank is quite popular, but I like blank, right? So you could say, maybe it is describe your favorite movie, right? You can say many of my friends like Avengers, but I like Titanic. Or Avengers is quite popular now, but I like Titanic. You could also compare yourself to others, right? There's a very popular film right now. It's Avengers. I also like Avengers. So you can compare or contrast. All right, what is the next strategy? Number 5, don't generalize. Now, this really is a lot of part 3, and I'll bring it up again in part 3. But remember, in part 2, don't generalize as well. We'll talk more about this later, but IELTS questions, primarily in part 3, like to generalize. It's not a good idea. It's honestly, I think, lazy writing for the people coming up with these tests. Try to avoid generalizations in your answers, even if they're in the actual questions asked, which in part 3 they might be sometimes. But even in part 2, try to not generalize. Don't say everyone does this or all Chinese people do this, right? Even if you're asked that, it's good to answer with, well, I don't think everyone does that, right? So don't generalize. Do not say that all people in a group like or prefer anything. You can say some people like certain things, but try to avoid saying all Chinese people do a particular thing or like a particular thing. So a question might be, do people in your country like blank? You might answer, some people in my country like blank, but others don't. Right? Don't generalize. Again, this probably leans more heavily on part 3, but also in part 2, don't generalize. What is the next strategy? This one might be a little complicated, so we'll discuss it in a little more detail. Number 6, both sides of an answer are fine sometimes. You may get a question that you cannot easily answer by simply agreeing or disagreeing, or you may get a question that you may not have enough to say, sometimes giving just one side of a single answer. In these cases, you could say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, and then proceed to give reasons why you agree or disagree, right? A lot of it, like this might have a little to do with generalizing, but also it's just they'll ask you a question, and this is predominantly part 2 stuff, right? I'll give you an example here. Is it better for children to play a sport or study art? You might not know the answer to that. You might not have a solid opinion in your mind as to which one's better, so you can answer for both. Right, so we have a beginning of an answer here. You're not sure if you think art or sports is better. So you might answer, I'm not sure, they're both good. A student who studies art may develop a more creative personality, find an enriching hobby, and develop an appreciation for different things. However, A student who plays sports may get more exercise, find friendships with people who have like minded interests, and help develop a healthier body. And you could also list some negatives you find about both of them. And the rest of your answer can be comparing and contrasting both options, both things, right? I recommend doing this if you're not sure or you feel answering one way won't give you your whole 2 minutes of talking, right? Then you could look at both sides and study both sides. You don't have to commit to an answer, especially if you're not sure. You don't know what you think is better. Even if you do think sports are better or art is better, but you're worried you won't have enough to talk about, discuss both sides. It's okay, right? If you feel you need to. If you're sure sports are better and you've got enough to talk about, that's fine, right? But you can say that you're not sure. Then you could list pros and cons of both of them. What is the next strategy? This is a quick little one that shouldn't take up much time, but it will kill some time. It'll make you look like you thought about it more, and it can make you look more fluent. Number 7, compare present and past, right? Compare, as I stated earlier, compare before and now, right? To fill up time and show a greater fluency, you could compare your feelings or habits at present with those you had when you were younger. This also might be applicable in part 3. What is your favorite blank? When I was younger, I liked blank, but these days I think I prefer blank, right? So this could be for part 2 or 3. What is the next strategy? Okay, this is another small one that can help with part of an answer. Number 8, discuss most cases versus an exception. This can sometimes deal with an answer where you're trying to avoid generalizing. Again, this could also be for a part 3 answer. Do people in your country like blank? You might say, I don't like to assume things about all people. I know some people like to do this, but others prefer to do this. Or you could say most people do this, but others prefer this, right? Right. A good one in China when we're talking about hometowns. I've almost every single student I've ever met loves their hometown. I've only met one girl who did not like her hometown. She had some problems with it, right? So she might answer, right? Um, yeah, everyone I know likes their hometown, but I don't. I don't like my hometown. So you can compare your answer to general, in a general, what you believe most people believe or think or feel. What is the next strategy? Our last one today is number 9. Discuss different degrees of things. This one can go with discussing both the good and the bad about a situation, but it can also be used to discuss different situations where different results might occur with the good or the bad. So the first one, right, is A or B better. A does this, but B does this, right? For an example where we're looking at two parts of one side of something. We're going to look at alcohol as an example, okay? So let's say there's a question, should people drink alcohol? Or let's say it's part of answering a question, right? In your mind, you've asked yourself, should people drink alcohol? You could say there are good and bad things about drinking alcohol. It can cause a lot of damage. People shouldn't drink because it makes them behave differently and is unhealthy, right? Then you could look at the other side. On the other hand, it depends how much people drink. On one level, moderate drinking can have health benefits and also make someone feel better about talking to others by fitting in or giving them confidence. On another level, if someone drinks too much, he or she can damage his or her health and behave poorly, right? So you're looking at different levels of something. And a good way to say that might be on one level, on another level, right? Okay, so you will not be able to use all of these strategies on all questions. It's too much, right? And some of them won't apply to certain questions. You won't be able to use them. You may not need any of them on a particular question, and you may not be able to use them on a particular question. These strategies can help you fill up time and appear more fluent. Again, you can't use them all. Uh, Too much, right? Especially you got your interrogatives, and then you've got your senses and emotions, and you're telling a story. You may not need any of them, but I recommend using a couple of them. I also recommend that you practice all these strategies so that you can remember them and use them easily if necessary. A big thing, right? I've been saying over and over and over, practice, practice, practice. So let's review all these strategies really quickly. Number one, take good notes. Number two, repeat the question in a rhetorical way. Number three, give examples. Number four, contrast yourself with others. Number five, don't generalize. Number six, both sides of an answer are fine sometimes. Number seven, compare before and now, or a better way to say that, compare past and present. Number eight, discuss most cases versus an exception. And number nine, discuss different degrees of things. Again, practice, practice, practice. Okay, homework for this lesson. I'm having you do this interrogatives part over and over. You need to have this stuff memorized. You should already have it memorized, and if you do, ignore it. If not, have your interrogatives and senses memorized and ready to go. Practice discussing emotions and telling a short story. Practice all 9 strategies in relation to answering Part 2 questions for IELTS. Go through these, right? Think of different ways. Look at number 1. How can you take good notes, right? Go through all of them. Practice them for these situations. Just listening to me talk about this stuff isn't enough. You have to practice this and use this. And like I said, practice, practice, practice. Next time, we're going to answer a Part 2 question and apply all of these Part 2 lessons to it. We're in-depth look at how much you can do using all of these strategies. We're going to look at interrogatives, senses, emotions, tell a story, and look at these 9 little strategies. Of course, that'll give us way too much stuff, but it's good to have more stuff than you need than not enough, right? So next time we're going to really look in depth at just a Part 2 question, applying everything we've learned so far to that Part 2 question. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Thank you.